welcome to the Finding Calm Amidst the Chaos podcast. Eric Evans here, your host, via hopeithelps.org. Today, we're going to share a very cool, useful secret. You're riddled with fear? Do you experience anxiety? Do you find yourself constantly worrying? If you do, this will be very, very helpful for you. Because as the title of the blog post on hopeithelps.org says, fear can never exist in this one sacred place, and that is in the present moment. Where you will find fear, and fear is actually very simple. It's a very strong word, but it's quite simple. Fear exists almost entirely in the future. And it can exist in the past, but for almost everything that you fear, it's something that's in the future. People with anxiety disorders, for example, which anxiety disorders are the highest form of fear, are thinking about the future and all the things that could go wrong constantly. They can't stop. They can't stop the cycle of thinking about the future. They're literally living their lives in the future, in their minds, while their physical body is in the present moment at all times. And so what we find is that if we can recognize any moment in which fear creeps in, or we start to think about the future. Because if you think about the future long enough, eventually, fear will creep in. There's something that you'll worry about. Well, what if this happens? What if that happens? So fear is something that can only exist outside of the present moment. So if we want to conquer fear, if we want to conquer our fears, if we don't want fear to control us, then we have to always be present. And when I say fear, you may say, well, I'm not afraid of anything. But think about the things that we tell our kids. Don't jump on the couch. You'll fall and crack your head open. Don't ride your bike without a helmet. You'll hurt yourself. Don't do this or X bad thing will happen. That is us injecting fear into our children. And that is the reason why society continues to grow in fear. That and the fact that just about every marketing message for a product is based around fear as well. Although that's changing now, which is good. It was definitely that way 10 years ago. It's gone to more positive messaging as far as that's concerned, but we are seeing, fear being used constantly. Fear of loss is the number one sales tactic. Fear is being injected into all of us by the government, by the healthcare system, by drug makers, by the drug commercials, all these different things. We're constantly having to evaluate and judge ourselves, and that causes fear that we won't live up to the standards that people expect of us, fear that we're not good enough to be who we think we are. All of that stuff, if you go down the list, it's all in the future. So if we can maintain our existence in the present moment, then we won't have those fears. They'll just simply go away. And each time a thought comes in, and you start to become afraid, well, what about this presentation I have to give next week? Or what about tomorrow at work? You realize, okay, we'll have time for tomorrow. We'll have time for next week. And whenever that time comes, it'll be right in the present moment, right there for us. When that time comes, that's when we'll deal with that. So if you can pay attention to those moments, at what points in time during the day are you doing stuff out of fear? It's different than what you probably think. Because if you are, I have to get a napkin or I might spill something. That's actually a fearful action. Going and getting a napkin because you might spill something that's fear. You're afraid that you'll spill something. Now when you say it out loud, it's like, well, who cares if I spill something? It doesn't really matter if I spill tomato juice on, a white cloth. It really doesn't matter in the big scheme of things, does it? But that little bit of fear that we allow into our lives will affect us. It will affect our internal dialogue, and it will affect our ability to either access the present or access fear. Because I shouldn't say fear, you're accessing the future. What is easiest for you to get to? Well, if you're constantly accessing the future, then it's going to be easy for you to always go back to that. If you become better at accessing the present, then it'll be easier for you to go back to that. And so we're creatures of habit, and we're teachable. We're coachable, and we can coach ourselves through fear. So fear is something that overwhelms you. If fear is something that is a problem for you, Every time you notice yourself becoming fearful, and it happens to all of us, it happens all the time, but each time you notice it, be conscious of it and go, oh, I'm afraid of X result. And then you say it out loud and you go, wait a minute, I'm not actually afraid of that. You realize there's actually nothing to fear at all. There is nothing to fear. There is nothing to fear. And you have no reason to be afraid. Because right now, in this moment, as you're listening, in this moment, everything's perfect. Everything right now, in this instant, is beautiful and perfect. And that's what we should be embracing. Not embracing the chance that something will go horribly wrong tomorrow or next week, but the fact that right now is amazing. And that's the key. That's the key to slowly washing fear out of your life. And I was a very fearful person. I, in fact, had multiple anxiety attacks in my life. And as a performer, or someone who does show for a living in showbiz, that's a tough thing to deal with. It was very difficult. I didn't know what to do. I turned to drugs, legal drugs. Went to the doctor. They gave me stuff to chill me out, and it worked. But then I had to have it, and so I realized that wasn't the way to go. When I started meditating, it got much, much better, and it got much, much better, much, much better, much, much better, and eventually it was gone. I don't have that performance anxiety anymore, which I dealt with for almost a decade. And it was through meditation and present moment awareness, or what they call in Zen meditation practice. The practice is being in the present moment at all times. If we can do that, then we can conquer fear. We can conquer everything in the present moment. But for most people in today's society, what we see is, and I had a great life. I mean, I had absolutely nothing to be afraid of. But it's what reference point are you choosing? The fear reference point is the ego. The present moment reference point is the self. And of course, the ego's never happy. The ego's very greedy. And the ego will never stop. So if you go down the path of fear, if you go down the path of living in the future, it can continually get worse. It can actually spiral out of control. Whereas with the present, what happens is you just get closer and closer to your soul. So whether it's through meditation, whether it's through music, whether it's through reading, playing golf, whatever it is, if you can access your soul through the present moment, it will help you rid fear from your life. I really, really, truly hope this helps. Happy meditating out there. And I will see you in the calm amidst the chaos. Namaste.